Yup, and welcome back to Talking Knicks. You're listening. Today is 10/22. Maybe it's later than that, but the Knicks played their first 3 games of the season. We are back with the Talking Knicks crew to talk about their first 3. We got a win and a couple losses, but some bright spots. So, hey, let's talk Knicks. Bum, 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 bum. Welcome back. If you guys were listening to us last year, we appreciate you. If you're listening to our preseason profile player projections, we appreciate you listening to that. I'm Jake Storielli of Talking Yanks fame, Last from the Past. We got podcasts coming out my nose. And I'm excited. We got back to some Knicks basketball, and we've got the full Talking Knicks crew in the house today. We've got Gregory Poon. He's been called the Trey Burke of the Talking Knicks crew. What do you think about that, Greg?
I'll take it. I don't know what it means, but I'll take it.
I like that. A lot of early spirit. Joined by Kenneth Poon, your 3-and-D expert, as he'll tell you. I'll give a Lance Thomas comparison, maybe.
Yeah, well, Lance Thomas might be the best player to ever wear a Knicks uniform. So I'm gonna take that.
Lance hit a couple big shots in the Celtics game.
Yeah, he did, but before that he played pretty bad. But I'm still gonna stick by my statement that he is probably the best Knick player ever to do it. And wow. I'm sure the old school fans know my reference, and the new school fans think I'm insane. But whatever, you know.
Yeah,
we'll explain that at some point.
Aggressive if you see some of his box scores from the past couple games, and rounding it out.
I'll be honest. I know the story. I still think you're insane.
All right. And that's called brotherly love, people. And finishing it off, Thomas Piccolo, Tommy Stats, Tommy Smokes, Tommy 2 times. He's been called the American Enes Kanter in some circles.
Yeah, I am not wanted in this country either. I was a podcast is nothing without a bunch of inside jokes. So good for Kenny for bringing that Lance Thomas love. Let's go from there.
I love it. Well, how's everybody feeling? Just quick. We saw 3 games. I think there's kind of a lot to like. We saw energy, heart, hustle. We saw some good basketball. We saw some bad basketball. But I mean, Tom?
Yeah, Jake. I mean, you said it. There is a lot to like here. Granted, we are now currently 1-2, 3 games in. With a win in the home opener versus the Atlanta Hawks. We dropped 2 on the road to the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics, which we did not expect to win. But I will say that those 2 losses were very competitive. They were lost in the final minute. I'm sure we're going to talk about some crunch time play and some decisions made by the coaching staff. But I mean, in all, you got to love the fire, the competitiveness this team played with, and I mean. It's hard to be upset as a Knicks fan. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I like that. Greg, how was your weekend? You were in Philly a little bit.
Yeah.
Any scouting reports?
I've only seen 1 game of the Knicks so far, so I'm thinking they still might go undefeated. I saw that Hawks game, and
like that.
Yeah, I mean, went down to Philly this weekend. Tried to go to the Sixers game, but bought some tickets that were already scanned in, so didn't make it. So the Sixers are terrible.
The dream weekend. Kenny, how was your weekend? And how about a little of that heart and soul we saw from the Knicks?
Good weekend. I hung out with Tom like 2 hours ago. So, you know, I've seen him recently, hung out with my parents for a little bit, and my other brother who's not on the pod, if he's listening, shout out to Rob. But yeah, man, this is about as good as I could feel about a 1-2 team like ever. This is how I thought I was going to feel most of last year because we're really not expecting them to win too many games. And, you know, even when they lose, it's like, oh, this will be better for our pick. So it's probably fine. And so, like, to the Knicks fans who are still holding out for every win, I mean, hopefully they turn it around and they win the rest of the games. But if they don't and they are what we expect them to be, like, just remember how you felt after the Knicks, you know, won the last couple games the last 2 years and then moved down in the lottery. It's like these games matter for that purpose too. So I'm not hating the losses, And all I'm really looking for is some like good hard play and some development, which we've seen. So I'm excited.
Yeah,
as long as we're talking about brothers, I will say Kenny and I were just visiting my brother at the Lasting Brass Brewery in Oakville. Maybe we can get him as a sponsor.
Shout out, sponsor, first sponsor for 2018. We joked about it a lot last year, but we said when the Knicks started playing for picks, ideally they play a good basketball game and then they lose right at the end, and that's what they did in the 2 losses. So
doing what we told them to.
Yeah, let's get into the games. You guys know if there's ever an opportunity for me to toot my own horn, I'm going to do it. And something popular from Talking Yanks was me burning the game. So I'm going to try to bring it to the basketball court. We'll see how it is. Maybe you boys will have to cut me off. But
I got to say, I'm interested to see how this goes because I feel like the burn is better developed for a baseball game when, there's only so many runs and you can list them all. But
that's what you think.
Challenge accepted. Burn, Jakey, burn.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's do this.
Kenny, you can have the first honors. Give me a little 3, 2, 1 countdown.
3, 2, 1, burn.
Opening night at Madison Square Garden, hosting the Hotlanta Hawks in an October basketball game that could have serious draft lottery implications. In classic Knicks fashion, they would start by going 4 minutes without a field goal, but not only would they recover it, they would put up a 72 spot in the first half, led by a 16-point second quarter by Timmy Limmy Shimmy. In the second half, the Hawks would pull within 13, but that would be as close as they'd get. ISO Zoe, Alonzo Trier drops the hammer on a highlight dunk to end the third. ISO Zoe, Mario Hezonja makes some ridiculous shots in the fourth. THJ finishes with 31, 16 from Cantor, 15 apiece from Burke, Hezonja, and Trier. We're all getting Von Lade tonight. He had 12. Knicks and Fizdale win his debut, 126-107. Let's go, Knicks. Don't tell me it stays in baseball, baby.
I'm eating my words, man. That was good. That was a lot better than I anticipated.
Well, I've heard better.
But before I throw up on myself and Mr. I Heard Better, Greggy Poon. Greggy, this was the game you were tuned into, opening night at the Garden. Give me your thoughts.
I mean, like you said, beginning, bad. Missed a lot of shots, took a lot of bad shots. You saw Tim Hardaway missing it. I mean, Tim Hardaway was basically just a microcosm of the night. He represented what was happening. So he started out bad and then just caught fire and was unbelievable. We're talking playoffs. We're talking are we getting home court in the first round? We're thinking about it. So that first game was a good one. We really dominated the Hawks, and the other thing is that the Hawks are very bad, and Jeremy Lin was bad, which was sad to see. He's the greatest Knick of all time. But Tim Hardaway Jr. loved it.
Yeah,
a lot of good players spread it around. I think Fizdale had 10 or 11 guys playing already in the first quarter, so he's going to spread out the minutes. It's going to be a good time.
Ken, a guy that I see you falling in love with before our eyes, Alonzo Trier, ISO Zoe, the rookie, puts his stamp on his first game in the Garden. Give me a little on him and whoever else jumped out to you.
So I don't know why you think Trier is going to be my boy, because I feel like I've said in every single podcast, I'm a 3-and-D guy, and Trier's not so much a D guy.
Come on.
The guy gets buckets, man. The guy gets buckets, and I'll give him that. I like it when he gets buckets. That was a big-time dunk he had, and he really got the Garden energized. I'd like to see more from him on the defensive end, but you can't complain about it in that situation where he went off. He had himself a great game. And just as the game as a whole, kind of like Greg was saying, there was a lot of mystery going into this one. First game of the season. We have no idea what we're getting out of this team. We have no idea what the rotations are going to be, what Fizdale is going to do, we have a little bit of an idea of their style of play based on the preseason. But like Greg said, first quarter, 11 guys played, and the rotations were, a little bit unpredictable, but it became a little more clear the next couple games, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit. And I think Tom mentioned it in his article that Fizdale seems to be a hot hand guy, and whoever's playing well, that's going to be the guy that stays in the longest. And he's going to do his rotations at about the same time every quarter, but the guys who are coming in and out are going to be depending on how everyone's playing. And that was something that I was really interested to see that game.
Tom, what a little hot hand? What was the box score telling you that maybe other things weren't telling you? Or you know me, I tried to steal your pick and roll stat on Twitter, but what do you have for us on this game?
Yeah, I mean, I probably will go a little further into that pick and roll stat. Kenny mentioned the hot hand. I think that definitely applies more to these closer games, these last two. Luckily, the Knicks didn't have to worry about that against the Hawks. That was kind of a blowout, which was encouraging to see, that they didn't take their foot off the gas, that this team can blow teams out. That's encouraging to see. I will say that one of the main things I noticed was with Frank Ntilikina, the guy we drafted last year as a point guard, he really didn't see a lot of action in terms of initiating offense. He was rarely a point guard in this game against the Hawks, which was troubling. Even though you've got Trey Burke running point, I mean, Moutier wasn't even playing in this game, so it wasn't like he was competing with a bunch of different point guards. The other guys you saw initiating offense were Ron Baker, it was Alonzo Trier. Frank Ntilikina had to defer to a bunch of different off guards and kind of played an interesting role where he was not initiating any offense. He didn't finish a single possession as the pick and roll ball handler, which is kind of a good barometer for running the offense. So luckily he did pick it up in the next two games. But the first game was not encouraging as far as Frank's role, in my opinion.
Yeah, and unfortunately, with the first game, Frank, you want to see a little more. But I mean, overall, up and down the box score, pretty good night from Knicks players. The only other one, Knox had a very much rookie night, but and unfortunately, as Greg said, this was against the Atlanta Hawks. There was times when Vince Carter was their best player on the court by far, but Fizdale gets his first win. The Knicks move on. We'll circle a little more on the players later. For now, I think we jump to game 2, the Brooklyn game. Tom, you want to give me the countdown this time? We'll 3, 2, 1.
You got it. 3, 2, 1, burn.
No sleep till bump up. The Knicks grabbed their skinny jeans and microbrews cross town to play the upstart Crooklyn Nets. The Knicks would get off to a slow start, going down 19-9 early in the first quarter, but would figure it out, including some pretty shots from Kevin Knox, showing his potential, but the Knicks would still be down 7 at the half. The Knicks would take their first lead of the game at 70-69 late in the third on a THJ jumper, which would start a really fun back and forth. Cantor and Timmy getting buckets for the Knicks. The Nets getting led by LeVert and Ernie, a.k.a. D'Angelo Russell. Cantor with the old school and one to tie it at 105 with 16 seconds left. Oh no, there he goes. There he goes again. Caris LeVert, the game-winning layup with 1 second left. 29 apiece from Cantor and Timmy wouldn't be enough as the Knicks lose 105-107 to their crosstown rivals? Question mark, Kenny?
I guess. I mean, I think there was some fun back and forth between Cantor and Dinwiddie over the offseason about who the better team in New York is. Doesn't really matter. Neither of them are very good. So, whatever. But, again, it's all about this season's all about what you see from the players and hopefully seeing some improvement. The big thing for me was I think it was the beginning of the third quarter when Frankie just went off. I think he scored 7 points or something in a very short span, and that kind of sparked the Knicks comeback. And, that's great to see. And that went along with some pretty solid defense, which, again, not to harp on Tom's article too much, but I think he mentioned in his article about Frank guarding LeVert early on decently. LeVert got his points, but Frankie looked pretty good.
Yeah, and just jumping in there real quick, you mentioned the beginning of the third quarter for Frank. And that kind of builds off of what I was saying about Frank in the first game, was that he wasn't getting any opportunities in the pick and roll. But in the third quarter of the game against Brooklyn, he actually got he got 3 opportunities in a row, and it was really the same play over and over again. They were setting double screens where the 4 and 5, I believe it was Cantor and Lance Thomas every time, setting a double screen for Frank at the top of the key. And the first time he came to his left and pulled up and hit a 3, the second time he came to his left and dribbled in a bit and hit a mid-range jump shot. And the third time he went to his right and hit a little floater. It was 7 quick points, and Frank was just fired up after that. So yeah, it was really encouraging to see Fizdale give Frank an opportunity to create out of the pick and roll after really not getting that chance in the first game.
Yeah, and you mentioned that he was fired up, and I think Clyde mentioned it as well, because that's something that we haven't seen from Frank. And like it's last year he was very hesitant, and he seemed like very reserved. And this year he had a nice couple of minutes, scored quick 7 points, and he got fired up. And that's what we're looking for, him to grow some confidence this year and develop into an improved offensive player while maintaining the defense that he's played this year. So good start for that. What do you got on that, Jake?
Man, it's going to be, again, one of these concepts that goes through the year. It's just the development of Frank, and I know it was really interesting, and I'm going to end up passing it to Tom again because he was eyeballing it more than a lot of people. He's looking at sets and stuff, people. He's not just talking out his butt like me. But it's interesting seeing who they're putting Frank on defensively, because I mean he comes out, you got LeVert, Dinwiddie, guys like that who are actually kind of unique matchups, but someone that Frank kind of lines up with. But it's going to be interesting. I saw him on Tatum a lot in the Celtics game. It's interesting. I think Fizdale has gone into this year with Frank, from what I've seen so far, saying, Frank, do what you can do on offense, do some passing, do some shooting, don't be shy out there. You can be special defensively this year, and I'm going to throw you into the fire, whether it's a Tatum, whether it's LeVert or whoever it is. But again, Tom probably has some actual numbers and information that he can use on that instead of me following my heart like I always do.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that Frank started on LeVert, and he did guard Karis LeVert for the first half. LeVert was coming off a 27-point game in Detroit, and Frank actually did struggle a little bit to begin the game. He gave up 11 points to LeVert on 4 of 6 shooting, 3 of 3 from the free throw line. But then in the second half, Fizdale actually had Frank matched up on Joe Harris and put Tim Hardaway Jr. on LeVert, which I thought was really curious. I didn't really understand that. I could see him not wanting to have Tim Hardaway Jr. chase Harris around screens off the ball. But I mean, to me, it's just as exhausting to be, trying to defend LeVert in pick and rolls, possession after possession. So that didn't really make sense to me. And it actually really did hurt down the stretch because Tim Hardaway Jr. just struggled to contain LeVert, who lit it up in the fourth quarter.
Greggy, Ken, what you got, bud?
To say, including that last shot, which pretty much put the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, literally just kind of a layup with 1 second left. Greg, any box score, fan thoughts, thoughts?
Fizdale said something like he left him on just because he wants him to be a better defender. So maybe not the best time to teach a lesson with the actual game on the line, but I guess I get it.
Yeah, hey, if it moves us up a draft slot in June, maybe we'll take it. So, we got, I think we got one more game. The Celts. Greg, would you like the 3-2-1 honors?
3, 2, 1, burn.
4 days into the season, and the Knicks are getting their back-to-back on. Facing the boys from the Commonwealth, the Boston Celtics minus Gordon Hayward. And an early theme from this Knicks team with another slow start, going down 26-10. Buzz, your girlfriend, woof. The Knicks would get the lead to 2 before the half with, speaking of back-to-back, Damian Dotson with back-to-back threes after they were about to file a missing persons report after not playing the first 2. Down the stretch, the Garden was rocking, and we had some fun Knicks Celtics action. Lance Thomas with a big 3 to go down 1 with 50 seconds left. Jason Tatum would have 6 points in the final minute, but he'd also make a crucial mistake. He fouls Trey Burke on a deep 3 with 1.9 on the clock, and the Knicks down 3. Say it ain't so. I will not go. The first free throw lips out, intentionally misses the last one. It's the final. 24 from THJ. Another 15-point performance from Trier, but the Knicks fall 101-103. Celts win / Knicks lose ? Ken, you're hot and ready to go?
Yeah, I mean, it was It was a good, exciting game up until that very last point. I know I was when Tatum fouled Burke, I was kind of losing it. Although they had just the Knicks had just missed a bunch of free throws, so like I wasn't entirely confident about him making all three. But to have him miss the first really puts a damper on things, and then makes the second and intentionally misses the third, and can't pull up the rebound. Knicks lose, but what are you gonna do? It happened. Move on.
17 for 27 from the free throw line for the game.
Is that good, Greg?
Bad.
Bad for a professional basketball team.
63%.
Not particularly in I think it was mostly the fourth quarter. I think they missed a bunch, which was particularly bad. And I think Clyde made the astute comment that will come back to bite you when you miss free throws. So there you go.
Missing and pissing away W's. Ooh. Tom, what do you have from this game, buddy?
Well, so one thing that kind of was disturbing was Frank Ntilikina's minutes. I know I harp on Frank a lot, and I will be probably all season. But he was a minus 22 in his 19 minutes, which was by far the worst on the team. The second worst was just a minus 8 from Lance Thomas at 17 minutes, Kenny's favorite player. So I don't know kind of what the correlation was. Frank actually did defend pretty well when he was on Jason Tatum. He held him to 1 of 3 shooting with a couple turnovers and just 7 points. But and so when Frank was off of Tatum, he kind of was able to get off a bit. But there was something about Frank's minutes that just didn't go well. He was only 1 of 5 from 3. He had a couple turnovers. It wasn't pretty for him. And just 19 minutes is really not what we're looking for him. We're hoping for him to get up in like the 30-minute per game range. And part of it was the fact that he wasn't playing crunch time, that those minutes were actually going to Alonzo Trier. And surprisingly, it was actually also Noah Vonleh at the power forward position getting minutes in crunch time along with Enes Kanter. That was a really surprising crunch time lineup. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about that.
So, Tom, before we jump into the crunch time lineup, I want to take my minute to defend Frank because that's what I do because I love Frank. I think you know this, so I'm speaking to the choir here, but just for our listeners, plus minus not a great stat for a single game. Over the course of the season, it becomes a little more relevant, and you get to see how teams play with someone on. In this game in particular, because Frank's minutes were limited, and because he was on the court at the beginning of the game when they went down 16, that was part of it. He did not have a lot to do with that going down by 16. I remember he was playing good defense, and he just didn't really get many shots up in that period. So I can't blame him for them going down 16, which is a big part of his minus 22. But like you said, he played solid defense. He didn't have a great offensive game. He hit a couple shots early, and then he went cold. He missed a few wide open threes, which, some of them rimmed out, but, that's basketball. Hopefully he gets his shot together. But not going to slam this guy for going for the minus 22. I just don't think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, Tom, something on the crunch time lineup. One fun thing for me. Watching Alonzo Trier and Marcus Smart go one-on-one when Trier's playing offense, I think that's both of their dream. Just ISO Zoe getting to go at Marcus Smart getting to go at ISO Zoe. I saw a little fun bump and run action there. Tom, I think something, and I don't know. I think the rotation is going to be very fluid, especially earlier in the year and with the matchups going on the court. We saw Kanter play in some fourth quarters. That is neat. I think something that needs to be said that you wouldn't see in the box score, the Celtics I think their final 2 fourth quarter possessions were broken plays. The Knicks played pretty good defense. The ball got kicked around a little bit and ended up in Celtics players' hands, which were, I wouldn't say it was even 50-50 hustle balls or anything like that. The Knicks defense made a play. The ball just ended up in the wrong place. So I don't know. I think it's one of those things. If either of those 2 plays, the ball ends up in a Knicks player's fan, or they make, half of their missed free throws, it's a very different game down the stretch, Tommy.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That second to last play where Jason Tatum ended up just getting a wide open dunk. I mean, that was just a freak lucky play. Walt Frazier mentioned the luck of the Irish on that one, and that was fair. The very last play when Tatum missed that wide open dunk, I don't know that I would call that necessarily a broken play. Like, he probably should have made that. That was within the flow of the offense. When he missed that dunk, they got it back, and then they really just had like a set offense again. So I think there was some opportunity for a stop at that point, but I completely understand what you're saying. Like that wide open Tatum dunk was huge, and there was very little the Knicks could have done to stop it. They were playing great defense all possession. I did notice that.
Yeah, and I have two things to add. First is we saw it there in the last couple possessions. The new rule change that goes back to 14 instead of 24. That really picked up the pace of the game and made it a lot more kind of exciting. Whereas normally in that situation where the Celtics get it, they're pulling it out and then they're holding it for 10 seconds, setting things up. Here, you don't have that much time, so you kind of get right back into the flow of the offense. So I really did enjoy that, and I thought it's so far so good on that rule change. Second, going back to the crunch time lineup, it was interesting in that they had Hardaway, Cantor, Burke, and Trier alongside Lance Thomas. And I would say the only one of those guys I would rate as above average at defense is Lance Thomas. So you have Hardaway, Burke, and Trier, who are all gunners and are all ready to shoot. And there was a couple times when Timmy made a few shots and then like he just decided he was going to shoot a bunch. Trier was open on one, and I saw him just kind of like waving his hands in the air. And after Timmy shot it, he was just like still waving his hands in the air as though like, what are you doing, man? I'm open. I'm the shooter. You got to hit me.
I saw that too, Kenny. I did not appreciate that. You know, you got to, because you know Tim Hardaway Jr. saw that out of the corner of his eye too, and you don't want people second guessing your shot in such a big moment. Yeah,
and it's particularly like Trier is an undrafted free agent that they just signed who's been playing well, but like Tim Hardaway Jr. right now is the cornerstone of this Knicks team without Kristaps out there. So like, give the man some respect. But like, it was just interesting to see all these gunners out there and not much defense. And like Jake said, they held up surprisingly well on the defensive end, although in the end it didn't turn out to be enough.
Greggy, any closing thoughts from Philly when you were getting chocolate wasted with your college buds?
I have no idea what happened in this basketball game. But the 76ers Magic game was crazy at the end.
That's true. And that was talking Sixers. I
think before we go on, I think we just got to you gave a little bit of love to Dame Dot and Vonleh, but we just got to say that those guys played good games. So that's all you need to know. Maybe someone will bring them up later. We don't know, but I just want to mention that those guys played good games.
Yeah, Dame Dot, that was great to see. After a couple DNPs, he came in and did his thing. I thought there were a couple moments on defense he looked a little lost, but you can also somewhat blame that on not playing. But let's jump to awards. Talking Knicks award. This is another theft from Talking Yanks, but you know, just a little fun, giving the guys some love. Some of the guys you missed along the way. I'm gonna bat leadoff again because my on base percentage is off the charts. I'm giving the Charles Oakley Light Award. And I think this is a no-brainer if you've been watching the games. But I'm giving it to the man Ken just brought up. Noah Vonleh, man. And there's nothing flashy about it. He's averaging 7 points and 9.7 rebounds in the first 3 games. And what's he shooting from the field right now? He's shooting I had it in front of me. 70%, which pretty good. That's going to have you in league leader category towards the end of the year if he keeps up that clip. But man,
we should have him shoot every shot.
Kenny, you mentioned
he's going to shoot 70%.
You mentioned in his player preview and profile, he's roped up. He's a guy that came into the league at age 19, 20. He kind of put in his due with the Trailblazers and had to find his playing time when he found it. And they used their big man as generic big man as they could be, which is kind of paying off because the guy hangs out under the basket. He plays big, and he's kind of roped up now. He's giving me Charles Oakley Light vibes. And I've just loved what I've seen from him. And I also remember, 2 weeks ago, we were talking about if this guy even had a guaranteed roster spot, and it kind of shook me a little bit because I was like, I think this guy's going to be our best big man for most of the season, and to see him doing what he do when he does what he do, that was a lot for me. Tom?
Yeah, Jake. So Kenny's mentioned it a couple times. This article I wrote for the B-Ball Index. It's called Knicks Buzzer Beater. It's 3-2-1. It's 3 observations, 2 questions, and a prediction. You go check that out on the B-Ball Index. But my one prediction was that Noah Vonleh will replace Kyle O'Quinn as MSG's fan favorite big off the bench. And he's definitely – I just think that what he's done so far is sustainable. He's been just a monster down there. I know he grabbed like 10 boards in 11 minutes in the game against Boston. But it hasn't been just the rebounding. Like he's taken a lot of pride on defense. He's defending the pick and roll well. He's been very switchable. He was actually the one guarding Jason Tatum for a lot of crunch time when he was playing the 4 spot, which was no easy task for him. One thing I also liked, I brought up with Kenny, and he kind of just poo-pooed it, but he does the grab and go thing. He grabs a rebound and he'll bring it down court. And there was one play in particular that I liked a lot where he kind of got it across half court before Boston's defense was set up. He did a little dribble handoff with Dame Dot and set a screen, and Dame Dot got a wide open 15-footer. And it'll be interesting to see what he can do going forward with that skill set, because it hasn't really amounted to anything so far, but you could easily see that turning into highlight dunks or some playmaking in transition. I've really enjoyed what I've seen from Vonleh, and I mentioned before in a different pod, I have his game-worn jersey basketball card. I am really hoping for him to pop off.
Tom, my favorite thing you said there was the sustainability, because none of it was fluky. It wasn't like Vonleh ended up with the ball in the post with 3 seconds left and was taking fadeaways. He was in the right spots. He was rebounding. And yeah, a couple, just what you want your big man to do when people were driving and they'd collapse, a nice little drop pass and Vonleh would throw it down. Ken, you got a quick hitter and then you got your award.
Yeah, I mean, to defend myself and give some context to what Tom was talking about when I was poo-pooing him, as he said. And first off, I love what Vonleh is doing, but when Vonleh brings it down and then dribbles it up court, usually what he'll do is he'll just pass the ball to the guy at the top of the key and let them start the offense. So he wasn't really doing anything with those possessions, was my point. Although Tom mentioned an instance where he did do something with it and create positive offensively, but like to see him do more and get in there and throw down a dunk or something. I don't know. And second thing, if we're gonna talk about Charles Oakley, I mean, you better put some respect on that name. Until Vonleh punches someone in the face, I'm not ready to call him Charles Oakley. I will stick with what Tom said and call him a Kyle O'Quinn version 2.0.
Lot of poo-pooing and a lot of face punching for the first pod of the year. Kenny, who is your first award?
So, I mean, I guess I said maybe someone would bring up Vonleh and Dotson before, and my award is Where'd You Come From award, which is Damian Dotson, who was the only player who didn't play in the first game besides Courtney Lee, who was injured. And I'm pretty sure he was the only player who didn't play in the second game besides Mitchell Robinson and Courtney Lee, who were both injured. So, he comes in after an injury to Kevin Knox, which I don't know if we talked about, but maybe we should have talked more about. But Kevin Knox goes down, so it gives Dame Dot a minute to get in. He gets in. He hits a couple big threes. He plays some solid defense, and he's playing fourth quarter minutes all of a sudden. It's like, where'd this guy come from? But it goes back to the playing the hot hand thing that we've talked a lot about, where Dame Dot comes in, he does well, and all of a sudden he's playing meaningful minutes. And he played 22 minutes and 21 seconds, which is more than Lance Thomas, more than Frank, more than Ron Baker, who, was apparently out there. So he played a lot of minutes and he did well in those minutes. So it'll be interesting to see is he going to keep playing these minutes? Did that game get him kind of bumped up the rotation a little bit, or what's going to happen there? Or is this just kind of a fluke incident where, Knox got hurt and we needed someone else to come in? And just kind of my closing thing on Damian Dotson is eventually with Trier on the roster, we're going to have to find someone else to cut. And it looked for a while like it might have been Damian Dotson because he was the only guy not playing. But now it's like, I don't know who's going to be the guy that's on the chopping block.
Yeah, it seems you can throw the term player coach out there easily, and it can mean a lot of things. Is it just a cool guy? Which Fizdale has that going. He's got good energy on the bench. It also seems like he's going to empower guys. If he's going to throw you in, he's going to throw you in and give you some run, especially if you're hot. Greggy, any Dame Dot quick hitters or just a little jab to the gut at Ron Baker or anything like that?
No, I'm coming around to Ron Baker, mostly because he just plays a bunch. So I can't just be unbelievably mad. And then I don't know if you guys saw his Instagram. Someone commented and was like, "Hey, you're the worst player in the NBA. You're wasting a roster spot." And he just commented back and said, "Thanks." It's hilarious. Like we've always said, we don't love watching him play basketball, but we want to hang out with the guy.
Yeah, we like sure. Ron.
He wrote a kid's book. How bad could he be?
Yeah, and I bought said kid's book.
How is it, Greg? Did you finish it? What page are you on?
Honestly, I've only had it for a couple years, so I'm not quite done. But his meter isn't perfect. That's all I'll say.
Well, Tom, I don't know a better segue to pass it on to you for your award tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk meters all day with Greg, but I guess the award I want to give out here is the Shane Larkin Award for, is this guy really going to get this many minutes?
Tell me it's Ron Baker.
It is Ron Baker.
Wow.
It was
segues.
That is a perfect segue. But I mean, really in that first game where I mentioned Frank he finished 0 possessions out of the pick and roll. Ron Baker got a couple. And not just that, but Frank was actually passing the ball in the backcourt to Ron Baker to let him facilitate the offense. And it was almost too much to watch. I couldn't handle that at all. I don't hate Ron Baker. I know there's a lot of that hate going around. I appreciate how hard he plays, how much effort he expends on defense in particular, but that it doesn't justify a few things. It doesn't justify his contract with the player option, and it doesn't justify how many minutes he gets, especially over guys who are supposed to be cornerstones of the franchise like Frank. And so, if Ron Baker's playing some garbage time and maybe even just a couple spot minutes here and there to inspire guys, almost in like a Rudy type of role, I can get behind that. But actual meaningful NBA minutes, I do not think belong to Ron Baker.
Yeah, and that's I loved what you said at the end there. A lot of Ron Baker hate comes from things out of his control, like his contract. I'm sorry, I would have taken the money too. A little Jacoby Ellsbury light situation going on there. I see you ready to go, Ken, and I see you too, Greg. Ron's always a fun topic.
I mean, I'm with both Greg and Tom. Like I turned around on him a little bit after seeing that Instagram comment because like I have nothing against the guy. Like Tom said, I appreciate how hard he tries. I don't think he's a great basketball player. I think he's a very solid defender. But in the first 2 games, he was the second guy off the bench. And it's like, I don't know if he's that good. But, he tries hard on defense. I don't know that I want him. You know what? To be honest, I would be much better with him in the role that they have Frank in, where like they put him over in the corner and they don't really let him do that much on offense half the time. Like if they did that to Ron Baker and just had him play defense, I think I'd like him more. But that's not what they're doing. They're just giving him the ball and letting him run point, which is a wild thing. But I digress. Greg?
Yeah. The thing is, when you're on Knicks Reddit's really the problem with Ron Baker, because you say anything bad about him and they tell you he's the best player ever. But then they say stuff like, if he can make shots, then he'd be good. That's a big if, If I could make shots in the NBA, I'd be good. And then people say, like, you got guys like Marcus Smart, Roberson, Patrick Beverly, who aren't great offensively, but they just play defense. But, like, he's not any of those guys. He's not even close to being on their level. So, good guy, bad basketball player.
Man, I saw a few plays where Ron Baker just gave up straight line drives to guys right to the rim. And I was like, you're supposed to be the defender. What's going on here? So he like we said, it's not a lack of effort. It's not a personality thing, but he's just not good. He's not talented enough. He's not good enough to be a rotation NBA player. It's not his fault. He shouldn't be telling Fizdale, hey, play me less. It's just hopefully over time they see his role for what it should be. And Knicks Reddit does kind of make it seem like if you don't appreciate Ron Baker, then you're just not sophisticated enough to understand the intangibles he brings to a team. But he could bring those intangibles behind the scenes. Let those keep those in the locker room. He's not bringing enough on the court to really justify his presence on it.
Yeah, and I don't want to draw too much from my personal experience, but it seems like there's a little bit new coach. I'm going to give the guy who hustles a lot a couple minutes just to show the guys that stuff actually pays off, which, again, is fine. We'll see how the Courtney Lee stuff plays out. But like Damian Dotson, it just seems like that guy has the potential to be a quality role player in the NBA. And the other thing that's just scary is, Ron Baker does hustle and he can play some defense on the right matchup. But him playing point guard on offense, I mean, it's frightening a little bit. But we'll see how that plays off more. And hey, maybe if we are playing for a pick by the end of the year, give him the minutes.
Jake, real quick, you brought up Dame Dot, and I will say he played great defense himself. Like, he was kind of considered an offensive option primarily last year, but I know when he was D'ing up Jason Tatum, I felt much better about that than when even when Lance Thomas was on him. Like, Dame Dot, first of all, we talked about Vonleh getting roped up. Damian Dotson got himself in the weight room too, and he's got a big body, and he used it too. He was very strong defensively against Boston, and I'm interested to see where that goes.
He wasn't with him shooting in the gym. Greggy Poon, our final award tonight. What do you have, Brother Nature?
My award is what is happening right now, and it goes to the one and only Mario Hezonja.
Yes, thank God.
This guy is something else. I don't know. I watch him and I say, what is happening right now? That first game when the Knicks beat the Hawks, and he just came in, they were winning, and he was just throwing the ball at the basket. Just Kobe for three. Just that fourth quarter, he like scored a bunch of points, but he also threw up the most ridiculous shots I've ever seen. And when it's going in, I'm sure it's the most fun thing ever to watch. But when that's not going in, I can't imagine watching it. So it'll be a exciting season with Hezonja. And the one thing I said was, during that fourth quarter, I texted you guys and I said, now I understand that between the legs fast break that he did on the Magic. And I don't know how to feel about it.
And that's exactly right, because the guy is so unpredictable, it's ridiculous. Like, there'll be times when he looks like a very good basketball player. He'll go and make a basketball move and like make a pull-up jump shot. And then there's other times it's like he's just going way too fast and like just going crazy. We're UConn guys. I don't know if you guys remember Doug Wiggins. He was a little bit like that, where he was just like, he's out there just trying to go way too fast and like throw things at the rim and get down to the other end of the court for like a layup, but there's five guys there, but he's going to go for it anyways and try to lay it in over them and just kind of throw it as hard as he can off the backboard. And like there were a few times where he did that. I was like, I don't know what's going on, man. But if you could string together your good plays and just do that for an entire game, you would be a very good NBA player.
Yeah, definitely feels like there's going to be Hezonja nights. There's going to be a couple nights when those shots are dropping. And Tom, I think, 2018, you can get mad at people for pretty much anything you want. And I think some people might say this is like racist, but it looks like he grew up playing basketball in another country. And I've said the same thing. Like Kanter's offensive rebounding is so special, and I think it's almost tied into that as well. And I think you could say the same about Hezonja's offensive game.
I think we just lost Lasting Brass as our only sponsor.
Sorry, Lasting Brass.
No, but I mean, I will say Hezonja does play with just the least amount of conscience I've ever seen. Like, no one cares less about what other people think about them than Mario Hezonja. He's kind of a basketball sociopath. I think that's how I'd put it. I mean, he will just jack up shots with no regard for what anyone else would think. Like, why? But at the same time, he made some buckets. He got the crowd into it. I feel like MSG is going to embrace him a little bit, just that brashness, that irrational confidence. I think he's going to be well received until he's put into a position where it matters, and then I think everyone will turn on him. It'll be like a Greek tragedy.
I'm waiting to see the Hezonja off the backboard pass to someone who shouldn't have a off the backboard pass thrown to them.
Ron Baker.
Yeah.
That'll be way too entertaining for me. Because like I said, we're not playing for much right now. So right now it's entertaining, and I can't imagine what's going to happen like moving forward. Like he's got to settle down a little bit. But right now I kind of love it. And he was pulling down boards too. Like I feel like he had 9 or 10 boards in one of those games. Like,
I mean, he was plus 14 in that Hawks game, which they won by 19.
So was a lot of the team, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. He's I was warned by some Magic friends. Magic fans I'm friends with. Say that a couple times. And yeah, it outlived the expectation. He went for one total heat check at the end of the Hawks game. It was literally 1v5, and he sent up a full rainbow. Well, boys, you guys probably thought this was just me being an idiot and asking for help, but I think it's an important segment. It's the what we miss. And the biggest thing that's jumping out to me, a guy that we've talked a lot about preseason, and we haven't really mentioned on the show, Trey Burke. He comes out of these games, he's averaging 11.3, 5.7, and 3.7 right now. He's looked a little inconsistent, looking like he's still finding his role. Ken, do you want to start on Trey?
I mean, I don't have a ton to say on Trey. It's just, it's a weird dynamic with Trey, Trier, and Hardaway because they're all gunners. Like Trey Burke led the team in assists last year, but I mean, I don't really consider him a passer. And all of them seem to really want to shoot it. And particularly at the end of the game when all three of them were at the same time is just a really confusing time. But like Burke's a fun guy. I think the same thing about both Burke and Trier is that they're best suited to be an off-the-bench scorer. I don't know how Burke is going to fit in as a kind of point guard of the future, and I think part of the reason that that Frank is ending up guarding some of the bigger guys is because Trey Burke is just incapable of doing that when he's on the court, and Trey Burke can only guard the point guard is basically what it comes down to because he's just so slight of frame, but. He puts the ball in the basket sometimes, and he's been shooting more threes this year, whereas last year he was almost exclusively mid-range twos. So I'm not too high, not too low, but I think he had a solid week.
Yeah, Tom, am I misreading this? Am I overthinking it? Because actually, if you look at the box scores, I mean, he had a pretty good game against the Celtics. He had a 11, 9, 3, 2 steals. It went 0 for 4 from 3, but that is what it is. And then in the Hawks, he had a nice night too. 15 points, 4 and 3. He struggled a little bit against Brooklyn, 3 from 11 from the field. But what did you see from Trey?
Well, and I hate to go back real quickly about Mario Hezonja's rebounding. His game high was just 3 rebounds. I felt compelled to fact check that because I don't remember him grabbing that many boards.
Must have been a preseason game. My bad.
It felt like 9.
No,
I bet it was 3 flashy rebounds.
He let you know
they were
he
good
was getting
ones.
the rebound.
He was
No,
picking
hold on. You know what it was? I think because now I'm remembering back. I think either one of the announcers, maybe it was Clyde, said that he had just pulled down his 9th rebound. And I think it was actually someone else who pulled down their 9th rebound, and he just gave he just set Hezonja. And
throwing Clyde under the bus, Ken.
I remembered this at the time, and I looked into it. I was like, that can't be real. And then sure enough, it wasn't. And then I completely forgot that I looked into it, and it wasn't true.
Well, so, I'm glad I fact-checked it real quick. Just going back to Trey Burke, though, Burke is leading the team in assists by a wide margin. He's actually got 17 assists through 3 games to just 3 turnovers, which is really impressive for a lead guard, lead ball handler. I remember we posted something about him on Knicks Reddit and saw some criticism that he was just very much a shoot first guy, and he wouldn't pass the ball unless he knew it was going to result in an assist for him. But there were a few plays I remember thinking like, oh, that's not true at all. Like he actually does have good vision. He can set guys up, and Kenny and I talked about it a little bit before at Lasting Brass Brewery, but I think Burke is the best passer on this team. And I think he's got the best vision, and he can penetrate the best and sort of draw defenders to him, opening other guys up. So I think as far as playmakers go, Burke is our best option. And, when the Knicks are in contention a couple years down the road, that won't be the case. Hopefully Burke is like your 4th best playmaker coming off the bench as sort of a spark plug. But at this point, he's the best that we've got.
And just a quick comment on what Tom was saying about him being a good passer is he did have one absolutely ridiculous pass yesterday in the Celtics game to Enes Kanter that I had no idea how he slipped it between 2 defenders, but he slipped it between 2 defenders to Kanter for a layup, and I was like, all right, maybe this guy can ball a little bit.
That was definitely the play I was thinking of, so hopefully he had other ones like that.
And let me say, Lasting Brass Brewery Company is refreshing on a hot summer day, and I just love to drink all of their beers. No, it will be interesting to watch with Trey. It is kind of funny on defense. This is the stuff we miss section. Might be a wild stat to look back on. The Knicks had 3 turnovers against Brooklyn. I think they only had 1 in the second half, and they still lost the game. So that's where it's a little touchy for me, because that's extremely impressive, but also a little shocking that you could lose a game against Brooklyn while still doing that.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, especially because I heard that stat and I didn't give it too much thought, but now that you're mentioning it, especially since this is an extremely young team, and with extremely young teams, you would expect them to turn the ball over, but 3 turnovers is absolutely ridiculous stat.
Yeah, and that's again, we talked about Frank playing timid in the first game a little bit, and hey, maybe Fizdale's really drilling the control of the ball stuff. I know every coach does, but talk about a wacky weird stat of the week brought to you by Lasting Brass Brew Company. No, I think quick around the horn, because another guy we didn't talk about a lot, Kevin Knox. He had a lot of misses the first night. He showed the flashes though, and that's all I'm looking for, right? Ken?
Yeah, the first night he struggled shooting, but they were up by so much it didn't matter. The second game against Brooklyn, he played a big part in the fourth quarter. Again, going back to the hot hand, he was playing well. They left him in. He hit a big 3 to tie the game, and he was pulling down rebounds, and he was playing solid defense, and that's what you want to see from your rookie first-round pick, and it was good stuff.
Tommy, Greg, any closing thoughts or Knoxy thoughts?
You can't knock Knox.
Ooh,
he was hitting shots in that second game. I didn't see it, but I've said this before, but his shot looks good. It just hasn't been falling. And then that second game, it was falling. So that's what we're expecting him to become. We'll see more of that in the future, and get well soon.
Thomas, I think you're close to the close. What do you, Knox, or any final thought from you?
Yeah, Knox against Boston was, he was awesome. I think he finished 7 of 14 from the line, and 3 of 4 from 3, 0 turnovers. So it's tough to beat that, especially from a rookie. So loved that. I will say, I know we kind of get into the Knicks nerd style and like to go at some deep cuts for players, but we really haven't talked much about Tim Hardaway Jr. or Enes Kanter, who are probably the two best players for the Knicks throughout the 3 games. We talked a little bit about them. I know you burned about them, Jake, but I mean, Tim Hardaway Jr., he kind of went off. He was averaging close to 30, I think, through the first couple. And, his efficiency was a little hit or miss. He had some defensive lapses, but he was definitely aggressive. He was definitely our go-to guy down the stretch. Whenever we needed a bucket, he was the guy we were looking to. And he wasn't getting easy looks either. He was hitting some tough ones, some step backs, some step back threes, some mid-rangers. But he managed to hit when they counted for the most part, and I think that was really impressive. They kept cutting to his father and saying how proud he would be, and I think that's right.
Yeah, Tom. So 28 points per game last week, and I know he had 29, or he had 31 in the first game, 29 in the second, which gives him 27 in the third. Is that good math?
There's no way to do that math. Forget that. Move on.
No.
Yeah, I'm going to move on. But he, like you said, he was hitting big shots, particularly in the Celtics game. He hit a couple straight threes that really got the crowd going. And then, he took 2 more heat checks and he missed them, and things kind of went downhill from there. But the guy's a streak shooter, and when he's on, it's very exciting to see. But so against the Hawks, he started out 0 for 4, I want to say. And then he went 8 for his next 8. Including a bunch of threes, and then he closed the game going 2 for his last 10. So it's like, this guy's a streak shooter, but if you can find a streak long enough in the middle of the game, all the numbers average out, and it looks good. So just keep doing what you're doing, Timmy.
Yeah, and I'll give Enes his love. I mean, he's averaging 21 and 12 right now, 2 assists. Yup. Playing in the fourth quarter, and Tom, you said it eloquently enough during the Brooklyn game. If he's going to be that efficient and productive on offense, then you play him. It's worthwhile. It's almost net a win. He's been doing his thing, and I think most importantly with Kanter is that you go through the offseason and you start looking at advanced stats, and you look at his contract, and you're like, oh, we could sign this guy, and he can't play defense, blah, blah. When you see it right with Kanter, it's awesome. It's awesome. The things he can do around the bucket is super impressive. And with Timmy, I think it's important to note, he's got a lot of volume going right now. But a couple numbers to watch. He's in the past week, he's had 6 free throws per game, shooting 94%. And on 9.3 threes, he's shooting 39%. So if he can keep some of those numbers, it's tough to walk away that Tim Hardaway is going to average 28, 4, and 3. Although in my player profile and projection, I did say some nicer things than you gals. But if he can keep that 3-point percentage up, go to the free throw line and make those, he's going to be a solid player for us. And I think, a lot of people poo-pooed. There's that word again, his contract. I get it. You can do a lot of different things with money in this league, but there's still a chance. This guy's 26 that he could really be coming into his own.
Yeah, and Jake, you said hopefully he keeps up that 39% three-point shooting, and obviously, hopefully he does that. But he shot 31% from 3 last year, so that's why our negativity was as such.
Thomas?
Talking about Kanter real quickly, it was nice to see him step out and hit a 3. Maybe even a 2.
I think he just hit 1, but it was nice.
Just the 1, but that was encouraging to see. I will say, when you're watching him cook, it can be very impressive, and so you have to kind of remind yourself, why isn't this guy a perennial all-star, and why isn't this guy, why did he not get any fourth quarter minutes last year? And so I did go through the crunch time minutes against the Brooklyn Nets, and a major way that Brooklyn was getting their buckets at the end of the game was putting Kanter in pick and rolls. So D'Angelo Russell was being guarded by Trey Burke, and they'd have Jared Allen come up, set the screen for him. On the first play, it was such a big play, too. And Kanter he was up towards the three-point line. He wasn't low in a defensive stance, and Russell just blew right by him for a wide-open layup to go up 1. And then the very next possession, they ran the same play, and this time Kanter was like trying to learn his lesson and was off a little bit. He had a foot in the paint to try and protect the rim, and D'Angelo just pulled up for an uncontested three. So, I mean, a little bit of that is Burke getting over screens, but he's so small that he can't really do that. He needs the help of the big man, and Kanter just provided nothing on either of those plays, and it really ended up being the difference in that game. So you see in plays like that why coaches kind of get driven crazy by him. But like I said before, if he's going 12 of 18 from the field, 5 of 5 from the free throw line, like that's so efficient that you can't really hate on what he does on the defensive end. You just have to take him out.
Yeah, that'll be interesting, Tom, because when you talk about a lot of defensive matchups, or when they say you can't play Kanter or whatever it is, it'll be interesting to see. Not a lot of people would think Kanter and Burke would match up as people you can't play together, because you're thinking point guard, center, they're not going to be guarding the same guys. But if you line those two up in a pick and roll, you're in a tight spot, especially at the end of the game.
And Fizdale recognized that too. He actually was putting Lance Thomas in for Kanter on defense for minutes at a time. So that was, he recognizes it too. It's just, it'll be curious to see how he just balances that going forward. If he'll go the full Hornacek route and realize he has to sit Kanter, or if he'll be more, risky with it and try and get what he can, maximize what Kanter can do in those crunch time minutes, and sort of play Lance Thomas just for defensive possessions, or whoever it may be, Vonleh.
Tom, I thought we'd go the whole episode without mentioning he who shall not be named, but you did it. And I mean, hey, just a lot of excitement this year from Voldemort/Hornacek. I think we're around our hour mark. I think where we want to be. Greggy Poon, hit us with your closing thoughts, bud.
Closing thought. I've only seen the Knicks play that one game against the Hawks, and the Hawks just defeated the defending Eastern Conference champions Cavaliers 133-111. So, wow. What does that say about the Knicks? They're legit 1-0 with a win over the team that beat the defending Eastern Conference champions. So, we'll see you guys in the playoffs.
Feel like the old SNL hardball skit. Straight delusional from Greg. Thank you, Ken. What do you have?
I don't know how much we want to go into these upcoming games, but I'm just going to throw out my. Yeah. Should I throw out my predictions for this week and then just call it a day?
Do it.
So the upcoming games: at Bucks, at Miami versus Golden State at the Garden. Obviously they're going to beat the Warriors. Probably going to beat the Bucks. Probably going to beat Miami. So 3-0, right?
Okay.
No, but they're going to steal one of those games. Those are three good teams. I can see the Knicks stealing one of those games. I don't know which one. If I had to take a guess, I'd say the Bucks, because they're angry because they broke Porzingis, so they're going to take it to them. And we'll go 1-2.
Okay. Thomas, predictions, closing thoughts?
So one quick closing thought would be, I'm curious to see how the Knicks offense will continue to look with their current shot diet. I wrote about this a little bit in my article, again for the B-Ball Index. They are shooting the 5th most mid-range jumpers per game, and they are shooting the third in the league in unassisted field goals made per game. So they are getting their buckets without the help of their teammates. It's a lot of isolation, and you just wonder how efficient that can be for the rest of the season. They do have a lot of ISO players, but it just rarely portends well for a strong offense, right? Yeah. Saw your face there, Jake, for the word portends.
Was that a real word?
We'll look that up after to do a little fact check. I fact checked you on the Hazonia rebounding stat. Can you do me a favor? But no, I think as far as predictions go, I'm thinking they're going to be competitive in nearly all of them. But I think I'm actually going to like a 2-1 here in their next 3 games. I don't even I don't even want to say which 2 they're going to win, but I'm going to keep it high level here and say they went 1-2 despite having a positive net rating here. They actually went on the top net ratings in the league 3 games in, which means very little. But I'm going to say they're going to balance out and go 2-1 in their next 3.
Greg, you got a prediction?
I mean, 2-1's essentially saying 2-0. basically, right? Because they're playing the Warriors, which is the one.
But in the Garden, Greg.
I don't care. But I mean, I don't know how good the Heat are, and like Kenny said, we don't like the Bucks because they broke Porzingis and because Giannis hit that game winner over Lance Thomas back in the day, which Kenny has that blocked out of his memory, but happened. So we don't like the Bucks. We don't like the Bucks. We don't like the Bucks. And the Heat aren't that good. So I mean, I'll go 2-1. Why not? Let's do it, Tom.
Okay. They're going 1-2. But I think that's it. I think that's episode 1 from the regular season of Talking Knicks. If you guys are joining us now, thank you. If you're catching up, we did some preseason player profile and projection stuff. That was a lot of fun. And some mini scouting reports on the Knicks team this year. So check those out if you want. If not, we'll be putting these out weekly. We might be getting some bi-weekly stuff going with some interviews and stuff. But thanks for tuning in. If you could give us a 5-star rating, we really appreciate you. And we'll be talking to you guys soon. And check us out at, what is it? The @Talking Knicks Pod on Twitter.
Talking without a G, Knicks Pod. Oh, and this goes back to Lasting Brass. Mike Piccolo, brother of Tom, asked us to explain what happened with our Twitter account because I mentioned it briefly. We were suspended. Unclear why. We got an email from Twitter that says you were suspended for violating the Twitter rules, specifically for : and then a blank. So we've been trying to get back on, but they haven't let us. So now we have the new account that's hopefully temporary, but follow us there. And if it gets switched over, we'll let you know.
Very much a sorry for partying situation. But check that out. Thank you for listening, and we'll be talking to you guys next week. Let's go Knicks.
Knicks take.